Welcome to the channel, guys. In this video I'm going to talk about McLarens and what you should look out for if you're considering buying a McLaren Sport Series vehicle. The vehicle we have in front of us is a 600 LT Spider, but all of the issues on the LT are also the same issues on any Sport Series vehicle. So we're going to start with the exterior of the vehicle, and one of the most common things on McLarens is unfortunately paint corrosion, bubbling under the paint. Obviously the panels are composite carbon fibre, so they don't rust, but you do get paint bubbling, which is from moisture getting under the paint either at the process at the factory or a stone chip, which has gone unspotted, untreated, and has allowed moisture to get in. Where you want to look out for any bubbling and corrosion, and I've not actually done a pre-inspection on my car, so we may actually find some as we're doing this, but you typically want to be looking at all the edges. And even if these cars have PPF, they are still prone to corrosion. This car used to have corrosion here, but that was repaired under warranty. So this area went here, I believe a little bit here. That's all been fixed. I'm happy to say McLaren did a great job. That was done by McLaren Manchester at their own body shop. But yeah, all of these edges, you want to be looking for corrosion. Of course, bottom of the doors, all of these edges. Another one where mine, again, had it, was right here, at the edge here. So, again, all fixed. But you want to be looking on all of these gaps for any potential corrosion. Not a deal breaker. All McLarens suffer this, especially the ones predominantly made, I would say, between 2015 and 2022. Definitely seem to suffer it. I couldn't comment on the vehicles made since then, but I have seen the odd Autoras, but generally it's not paint corrosion, it's more the metal grills that they're using to turn colour. Again, none of this is a deal breaker. Any good qualified body shop can fix it. The only issues with McLarens is the paint codes are generally hard to obtain, but they do tend to be available within McLaren chat groups. And then if you've got a good body shop, they can obtain the paint code, mix the colour, and then should be able to sort it out for you. Because if you're out of warranty and you want McLaren to do it, McLaren body shops charge high ticket prices. You're better off with a specialist body shop that has the paint codes and can do that for you. Of course, the same again, any car that has ceramic brakes, do make sure you check the ceramic brakes closely and detailed. So this surface here should be smooth to the touch. It shouldn't be rough. It should be smooth and somewhat reasonably shiny, so you can see my hand reflection in those brakes. If they are rough or very dull or have scoring marks, that's not to say that the discs are knackered. They obviously still work, they still function, but it should be a point of bartering to get the price down a bit, because you at some point may have to change those discs. And again, McLaren prices, a pair of front discs is going to be about £10,000. Again, in the chat groups, you can normally get them for less than half that. So it does pay to join the clubs and the chat groups to get better prices. Of course, check all the edges for any chips of sizable. I would say if a chip is bigger than, say, half your little finger, that's going to be a problem down the line. Again, there's a very, very little mark on mine there. That's been there for the past year. Nothing's changed. It's not an issue. Also, on these cars, the trim, I think they have like it's gone, like cardboard fenders. Again, not a deal breaker. Just have a check of the fit and finish off them. Generally, when these cars go in for servicing by McLaren, the dealers don't always put those trims back perfectly. Easy to do, not at all a problem with the car. One of the other things you want to check is there any kind of fluid leaks under the car? Most of these cars, Sport Series, have all now had coolant hoses recalls for the clamps. The clamps can fail and thus cause water leaks. If there is any kind of leak, again, it's not a deal breaker, but I would advise you get that car inspected by McLaren. Find out exactly why there's a leak, and if it is just as simple as a coolant hose attachment, then of course that's not going to cost a lot to fix, and then to do a coolant change on the car. When you start them up, It's a very, very rare thing to happen, but you do want to see your McLaren starting from a cold start, because within the first 30 seconds of cold starting, you're going to get plumes. Let's call it steam. We like to say these 600s like a fire-breathing dragon, and the steam will come up from both pipes evenly. If, on a very rare occasion, you have an engine issue, steam will only come out from one side of the exhaust. So if you have, say, this one's steaming and nothing's coming out of this one for 30 seconds on a cold startup, walk away. That means the car has engine issues. It's extremely rare, but it does happen. But it's a very, very rare issue. It's far rarer than, say, Porsche GT3 engines eating themselves. But it's still there, still to note. When it's insist on seeing the car start from cold, make sure there's equal amounts of smoke coming out of both exhaust pipes after it's been running for a few seconds. In the first 5 seconds, it's fine if only one's smoking, because obviously the whole system has to catch up. So yeah, exterior-wise, it's really cosmetics. Not much, actually. Obviously, people used to try to take the mick out of McLarens, they're not very reliable, blah, 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 blah. But having owned Porsches, Ferraris, McLarens, not owned any Lamborghinis yet, but I'm told with good authority that Lamborghinis are probably the most reliable supercar. But when it comes to Ferraris and Porsches, they're just as bad as McLarens, if not worse. I've had far more expensive bills on my Ferrari and my Porsches than I've had on this car. Extended warranty is very important on these, because the extended warranty is very good. All of the minor issues I've had with my car, the warranty has covered them all. Ferrari, that was a different question. The gearbox failed, the warranty wouldn't cover it. So, not to provide Porsche warranty, again, tends to be very good, and it's far cheaper than the warranty on these. But anyway, I'm digressing. Let's crack on. Now, it's a much harder thing to check, but if you can, look at the car on a ramp and check that all 4 of the dampers are dry. The dampers are known to leak. If they leak, they're about £1,500 a corner. So obviously, it's another bill you don't want. I mean, McLaren would probably charge you £5 grand an axle for 2 dampers fitted. So check that they're all dry. Check the suspension when you're driving the car on the test drive, that you can feel the difference between comfort, sport and track. There is a noticeable change between all 3 modes, and you will feel it straight away. If you're not feeling much of a change, or you're not feeling any change at all, there's a problem with the electronic dampers. Not a walk away, but a negotiating point. Another thing to look out for in these, again, when you get in the car and the car's been running a bit, switch on the aircon, set it to the coldest setting, and make sure it blows ice cold air, because there is a known issue. It's a design flaw, but whether McLaren will fix it or not on goodwill is unknown. But the aircon pipes are behind here, and to protect the aircon pipes, they have a plastic housing over the pipes to protect the pipes. But the problem is, this rubs against the plastic housing, which then rubs against the pipes, which then causes the pipes to corrode, and thus all your gas leaks out and your aircon no longer works. So if the aircon's not working, it's most likely to be that, and that's about a £1,500 fix at McLaren if it's not under warranty. A specialist will probably do it for less than half. So V Engineering, Thorny Motorsport probably do that for about 700 quid. Again, not a deal breaker, but it's something to check and something to negotiate over. Something very common on all Sports Series cars and potentially Super Series is door hinges. They are known to crack. This has been made a big deal on the internet, which I really don't think it's as big as a deal as it's been made out to be. My car has the updated hinges, which you can tell here. On the older hinges, this is a hole. On the updated ones, it's solid. But where the hinges crack and it's micro fractures, they crack around these bolt points here, which is either incorrect fitment or over tightening, and they will micro fracture. So you want to get a high powered LED light, so one of the little pens you can get, and ideally in artificial lighting, and shine all around there and look for any micro fractures. For me, it wouldn't put me off buying a car even if the door hinges had micro fracture cracks. Same again, you want to get underneath there and just check around all those bolt holes, see if there's any cracks. There's been no reports of a door hinge failing, and this is why I think it's been made a bit of a lot of noise on the internet, because no door hinges have failed, but McLaren will generally change the door hinges if they are cracked under goodwill, but it's not guaranteed. So if you buy a car with cracked door hinges, and McLaren are not willing to do it under goodwill, to buy the hinge and to fit it, because it's a very big job to fit a door hinge on these and then get the door aligned and fitted correctly, you could easily be talking £2,000 per door. So again, I personally wouldn't walk away, but you could use it for negotiating. But I would also not let it worry me. I've not known any door hinge to fail. I think it's a load of hype being made out of nothing on the internet. But feel free to correct me if you think I'm wrong there. But until I see a door fall off, I really don't think it's an issue. But again, that's why McLaren's been doing it. Another thing that you'll get with McLaren's, mine's just done it. Doesn't bother me. The window doesn't always go up when you shut the door. Now, sometimes you can use the button in here, which may put it up, but because the roof's down, it may not work. Oh, there it's worked. So there's a hidden button underneath there, which if you hold down, will raise the window if it doesn't go fully back up. Some people get really upset by this and complain to McLaren. I think it's a McLaren quirk. Put up with it. The issue arises that some people have had where the door window will drop all the way down and refuse to go back up, no matter what you do, whether you're doing it from inside the cabin, the secret button, just won't go back up. That's obviously a problem if your car's outside and it's raining, or obviously for security. So just check all the windows operate, but if they do that slight drop thing and don't go back up, I really wouldn't worry about that. I've seen that happen on pretty much all McLarens. The issue is when they're going down more and refusing to go back up. The other issue, again, it's very minor. Sometimes these external door switches, because to open the door, there's a rubber button underneath here. Now I do this without even thinking, and there you go. The windows come down, and you go. Sometimes they fail. That's definitely not a major issue. The part itself is about £30, and I think it takes McLaren 30 minutes to fit it. I think it's a very simple part. They probably actually do it in 5 minutes. So yeah, external door switches, if they failed, McLaren can easily fix those. So yeah, you've been around the outside of the car, you've looked for corrosion, you've checked for any leaks, you've been inside the car with the car running, you've had the aircon running, you make sure it blows ice cold, you've checked all the body, then drive the car. In driving, obviously a 600 LT, but any sports series, there should be no clunks from the suspension. If you're getting clunks over bumps, it will either mean your springs are snapped or your dampers are failing. So that goes back to check the dampers for visual any leaks. If you can check the springs visually, also do so as well, because if they are snapped or cracked, you will spot that on a visual inspection. But without a ramp and without the wheels off, it's not so easy. But on the test drive, again, change the modes, make sure the firmness settings are changing, and the car should ride pretty quietly. Of course, don't try to hit a pothole on purpose. You know, look how skinny those tyres are. They're not designed for hitting potholes. But the car in general shouldn't be clunking or knocking. If it is, that could be a snap spring or worn drop links. If it's drop links, they are not big money at all. They're about £100 a side and very easy to fit. If it's springs, that's a much bigger job. The damper's got to come off. Though the springs shouldn't be expensive. Nothing's particularly cheap on a McLaren. It is a supercar after all. But it's quite a big job to fit. So it could be quite expensive, and there's definitely a negotiating point. Not again a walk away point, but I wouldn't buy a car with snap springs unless I was confident I could get it sorted straight away. I would ideally want the owner to sort that at the ticket price that they're asking for the car. The other things you want to look out for, and I will confess this is my error, I will change them at some point or paint them. You will see my top exit finishes have some faint scratches here. I hate rattles in a car, and these cars are heat shields all around here to obviously protect things from melting. So mine was getting a horrible like heat shield rattle. Anybody who knows cars and know heat shield rattles will know they're not pleasant. So I was determined to fix it. So these are easy to pull off. You just put your hands in here and yank, and the thing lifts off. Now I made the mistake. I was in my garage and I leant that panel up against that wall. And I was like, yeah, okay, that's cool. It's not moving. It's dead happy, blah, blah, blah. As soon as I walked out the garage to go get a drink, the panel slid down the wall on the floor, and that explains them scratches. So that's, I self-confess, I did this, my mistake. If you're ever taking this off, lay it somewhere like on bubble wrap where it can't slide down a wall. I mean, it's not the end of the world. They can get re-ceramic coated, they're done, or I could buy new ones from McLaren. I believe they're about £400 each. So they're not cheap. When it comes to the interior, there's not really any major problems. As into visuals, one thing that the P1 seats like to do, mine did this, but I fixed it myself. You might see the sponge coming out at the side because somebody who's maybe a little bit too big for the P1 seats, we'll go on the other side where it's easier to see, as maybe doesn't quite fit in them perfectly, has basically pulled the fabric over. So as you can see here, is that, so there's only yellow sponge showing there. Not a deal breaker at all. Don't even ask for money off. I literally, oh, you can see some actually. If you look there on that side, because I've not done that side of my seat, you can see some of the sponge coming out the back there. You literally grab around, you tuck them in by hand, and then use some like fabric glue and glue this back to the back of the carbon shell. And I've done the other side of that when I got this car, and that fix has remained fixed for the last 2.5 years, but I've never spotted it on that side there. I'm going to see if I can quickly tuck that back in whilst I'm filming, so apologies. Now I'm going to need both hands. But basically what you do, you just grab and pull the fabric, get the sponge in, tuck it back over the runner, and then just glue it back on, and then hold it there for a bit, or just put a clamp on it. Interior wise, make sure everything works. So the big one is the aircon, because you want to make sure there's no aircon pipe issues, leaking gas, make sure that works. Make sure the sound system works. Very good sound system in these cars, believe it or not. Make sure it works. Make sure your steering column motor works and the memory function works, because the big electrical gremlins we had with our car, we think was maybe linked to a faulty steering column motor, which would be, you'd get in and it would tell you it's not available or it wouldn't adjust properly. Now that's fixed, so we get in the car will basically, well, let's demonstrate. I'm also doing this on camera. I apologise if it goes horribly wrong. Not the easiest a car to get in and out of. Oh, let me swing my legs. Obviously, you don't want to scratch these carbon sills, so you've got to be very careful when you get in and out. But let's see that spot. I would probably be a good idea to PPF those. So, yeah, I've got the key in my pocket, yeah. I can also, maybe, the car is partially warm, so it may not do the whole steam out the exhaust thing. But if I wake the car up, so you can see there, also check your battery. You don't want the batteries in these to get down to 0 days, because it is a lithium battery, and if you keep letting it deplete, you could damage the battery. So definitely let your McLaren live on its trickle charger, and that the batteries will probably only last 2 to 3 weeks off charge if you're not driving the car. If you're driving the car every day, there's no need to trickle charge it, but do keep an eye on that. So I'll press it again, that'll wake it up. Let me just turn the heater blowers off. Now, of course, I'm not getting the option. That's just maybe because my doors are open, or it's already there. So, of course, when you want to do something on camera, nothing ever goes to plan. But we're going to start it up. And this is, I do have my special mic on, so you're probably not going to hear the engine. But then we're going to try to get out and see if the exhaust do their steaming thing. Well, put it in trap mode, just so it stop-start doesn't cut in. So, on a cold start, you'll get plumes of steam. You want that to be even on both sides. And of course, it may only do it on cold weather days. The sun's out, the car has been running, so there's no steam now. Of course, that's also a good sign, but normal to get some steam smoke on a cold start. But yeah, we just step back in. So you've got your dash there. You've got touchscreen for your heaters, but believe it or not, it's actually very easy. I hate touchscreen with a passion, but this is dead easy. I are full fan. I want to drop my temperature, done. I want to put my temperature up, done. I want to turn AC off, done. It's a nice big screen. It's very easy to get to without being distracted from driving on the road. Steering wheel, of course, has no buttons. And again, you want to put your AC on, you want to put the temperature down to maximum fans and stick it so it's blowing out the vents at maximum. And after a few seconds of running, that should be ice cold. But and the car's now off its cold start as well. But we look in the mirror, and you've got a back window. There you go, which you can move up and down. You can also operate this with the roof up, so you can always get the great sound of those exhausts, which for me is an absolute must in this car. Make sure all the buttons work on all the panels. Make sure the radio works. We're not going to put that on. But generally everything in here, it's quite basic on the inside. It's how I like it. It's a car all about driving. That's how it should be. And so the carbon fibre pack, it's very nice to have. The extended paddles, very nice to have. And that's really everything. I'll turn it off. On a 600 LT and a Sport Series McLaren of what to look out for. So generally they're quite reliable cars. I would say their biggest Achilles heel is cosmetic with their corrosion issues. But apart from that, these cars are about being driven. Buy one, get out there and enjoy it. You won't regret it. They're absolutely monstrously fast. And out of the entire McLaren range, for me personally, is the most fun. Because it's got the passive basic suspension setup. You've got a beautiful hydraulic steering rack. The car's quite firm but not unruly. So it's the most engaging of all the McLarens to drive on the public road. Don't get me wrong, this car's still way too fast for the public road. But how can I explain this? In a 750S, for example, you want to be doing 150 mile everywhere to enjoy it. And of course, that's double the speed limit. You get caught doing that, you're in big, big trouble, and you shouldn't be doing that. In this car, to enjoy it, you probably want to be doing 90 to 110. Again, it's still against the law. You're still going to get in a lot of trouble. But to get that reward for enjoyment, it has reduced. And I would say out of all the McLarens, the 600 LT is the very best. I've driven the 570S, I've driven the 600 LT, I've driven the Artura, I've driven the 750S, I've driven the 720S. For me, on a scale of what's the most fun, without breaking 100 mile an hour, 600 LT is at the top. And then, believe it or not, I would probably put the Artura in second place, then the 570S, then the 750S, and right at the back, the 720S. I did not get along with the 720S. I found it, yes, it's a rocket ship. Yes, it will leave this for dust in a straight line. Truly, stupidly fast car. But I didn't get along with it. I was actually pretty bored. It sounded, to my ears, quite rubbish. There's just not any noise. The 750S is a massive leap up in sound to you as a driver. And of course, I'm talking spiders here. Though I will admit the Artura I drove was a coupe because there wasn't a spider out at the time. But yeah, 750S is better than the 720S for driving enjoyment, but I still rate the Sport Series cars above them for driving enjoyment. If all you're interested in is numbers and having the quickest car, then yeah, by all means, buy 750S. If you want the quickest car for about 100 grand, buy 720S. You ain't beating them for the money. They're the quickest thing on the road. They're unbeatable if you just want performance. I mean, a 720S, they've clocked the quarter mile in sub 10 seconds. Totally stock. That is insane performance. And you can tune them and make them do the quarter mile in mid-nines. Bonkers performance, true supercar, carbon tub. McLaren are the best value supercars I would personally say on the market at the moment. You get the doors, go up in the air. These cars are chronically undervalued. It's a crime in a way that you can buy a 600 LT in a coupe form for about £110,000, and you can get spiders from 115, 120. They are the absolute supercar bargain of the century at the moment. I personally think, having owned a GT3, it's far more exhilarating than the GT3. It's a lot more fun on the road than the GT3. It's even quicker on track than the GT3. Substantially faster on track. My Ferrari 458 was more fun on the road than McLaren because it was more engaging at low speeds, very short gearing, and a very willing chassis, should we say, to drift. I mean, NA powered, you could boot it at 2000 RPM and it was sideways. Whereas with this, you've got the turbo, you've got the boost. It takes a bit more skill to enjoy it in that sideways manner, and typically you're doing a higher speed at the same time. But yeah, that's my buying guide for the 600 LT. I've got loads of videos on my channel about my other cars. Please do like and subscribe, and I hope you found this buying guide useful and informative. And if you have any tips for any other potential buyers of a McLaren Sport Series, please do add it to the comments. Just one more thing I wanted to add to the end of my buying guide for any McLaren Sport Series, or actually for any McLaren, is don't buy a tuned one. The engines, they are very tunable. There are a lot of tuners out there that maybe don't tune the engines quite right. And for proof of this, I'd recommend that you subscribe to a gentleman called Ricky Alder at RE Performance, who rebuilds a lot of engines, Audis, Lamborghinis, McLarens, Ferraris, motorbike engines. He can pretty much rebuild them all. And though generally he does not see any issues on factory tuned McLaren engines, he generally, when he's tearing down an engine that has an issue, it's because that engine has been tuned and causes excessive wear on certain parts. Of course, the other downside, if you're buying a tuned McLaren, you can't put an extended warranty on the car. If you do have an extended warranty on the car and you put a claim in for a drivetrain issue, and McLaren decide that they want to inspect the car before authorising repair, and they pick up that the car has been mapped in the past or is running a map, they are going to void your warranty and you're going to be having to pay out yourself. So yeah, my advice is don't buy one that's tuned, and do some due diligence and try to check, like looking on social media, Instagram, Facebook, on the car that you're thinking of buying. Run searches on its number plate, run searches on social media. If you find any photos of that car on a dyno being mapped, walk away from it. That's my advice I can only give with buying a McLaren. Two of the cars I previously looked at before buying this one had been tuned, and though they were very nice cars, I walked away because I knew that if I had an issue, though engine issues are rare, those engine issues are going to be more common on a tuned car, especially if it's been tuned by maybe not a great tuner. If I was getting a car tuned, I would only take my car again to like RE Performance or Litchfield Motorsport, or somebody who had a great name and a great reputation in tuning McLarens or whatever brand of car you're looking at. But if it's just been tuned by one of these like more broader companies that tune all cars, they are not specialist tuners. They're just doing a basic map that they put on any car. I'd never take my car to a place like that. If I'm getting my car tuned, it's going to a specialist who's tuned loads of that car and has loads of recommendations from member groups, from club groups, from social media. That'd be the only time. But generally, I would say this: why on earth would you want to tune a McLaren? None of them are slow. They are all brutally fast. Even the 540C will leave a Tesla for dust. None of these cars are slow. If you drive a McLaren and you think it's slow, then, well, maybe you need to take up fighter jet lessons and start flying fighter jets, because that's probably the only way you're going to get your fix. So yeah, McLarens are not slow. They're all brutally quick. The 600 LT is brutal in the way it accelerates and the way it feels. But as my advice to anyone thinking of buying one, stay away from a car that's been tuned. I just wanted to add that onto the end of the video. And of course, when you go out on the test drive, make sure that the car pulls hard and cleanly through all the gears. The gear changes in comfort will be totally seamless. You won't feel it changing. In sport mode, they'll be quite abrupt and aggressive. And in track mode, there'll be a gentle push. As long as the gearbox feels great, isn't clunking, is smooth when you want it to be, etc., and changes gear when you pull the paddle. The gear changes on these cars instant. As soon as you pull the paddle, the gear will change. There should be no delay. There should be no knocks, clunks, or anything. And the car should pull very cleanly through the entire rev range and feel properly quick. Just wanted to add that on. Sorry it's turned into quite a long video, but I'm just trying to help anyone who's potentially buying a McLaren to actually buy a really great example. I'm just going to zoom in on the car at the end of the video, just so you can see it in the sun. Looks totally incredible. As always, thank you for watching. please do like and subscribe to the channel.